morning, West Ham fans. Rush the West Ham Network. Hope you're safe and well. Happy Sunday. Champions of Boyle Sport. You'll never sing that. West Ham win the Boyle Sport Cup. The BS Cup is ours. Always gets the cup final, though. We do really well in terms of that competition. Now, obviously, I know full well that we're playing Little B, not just a rapper, but the actual reserve team of the league, our side, at Rush Green, but in a behind closed doors friendly today. But in terms of the public pre-season, that's over with now. All over with. So what I thought I'd do is look at it as a whole and come up with some things I've enjoyed about the pre-season and some things I haven't enjoyed about the pre-season in terms of the matches played the summer season, Boreham Wood, Zurich Grasshoppers, and obviously the victorious BS Cup victory against Lille yesterday. What a time to be alive, my friends. So I divide it into two camps. I divide it into the things I love. Let's take off that, actually. Things I love and things I hate. Okay. So we're going to do one. Let's start with a love. Magic Diouf. 24 karat magic. Call it magic. Magic Diouf. Just putting it out there. Could be a new chant. I think he has been the single most positive that's come out of the pre-season. We have got a hell of a player in our hands. We have got, as I said, he's got a cheat code in that cross and that left foot, the way he whips it in. And as I said, if he's not getting 8 assists next season at least, then something's very, very wrong with our forward line. Yesterday I thought he was exceptional. Unlucky not to get a goal really from that header in the second half. There were some lovely balls. There was a lovely ball he did in the first half where he sort of it was a longer cross and it went to almost like sort of the other side of the box for Bowen, who literally just stood there. The ball was put to his feet. Did a low drive cross as well, which was unlucky. And all action. I'm really going to enjoy watching him. And we finally got some balance at the side in terms of on the right hand side, Wan-Bissaka, and Bowen. That little combo works really well. And I'm thinking, on the left, particularly with Diouf, we've got an outlet that side as well. You can see what they were trying to do. They were loving the diags in terms of the centre backs and looking out for Diouf, who seemed to have a lot of open space. So we've got a good player in our hands, old Magic Diouf, 24 karat Magic Diouf. No, he's not number 3, innit? He should have been number 3, innit? 3 is the magic number. That's Kilman. 12 is the magic. Doesn't work, does it? So that's something I love. Something I hate. The reliance on JWP. Again, he had a full 90 minutes yesterday. And looking at that side we put out, bar maybe the goalkeeper, unless we buy a midfielder in time, and they're fit enough in time to be put into the side against Sunderland, that's, I think, going to be our starting 11 for the Sunderland game. And it worries me with JWP. Always has done. He's a tidy player, but that's all he possesses. And I think, and we're going to talk about another player I think has come through, but, with him in this sort of like an 8 role kind of, or 6.5 basically, it doesn't work. There's no energy from that side. Yes, he can knock a ball in, but so can Bowen, and so can Paqueta, and probably so can Diouf as well, in all honesty. And, I just, it is abundantly clear that is the one position we need to concentrate on in the next, well, I'm not even going to assume sort of in time for the Sunderland game, but, we've got just shy of 3 weeks left for the transfer window. That needs to be sorted. And it's abundantly clear to everyone that there's no reliance on JWP. I think, having him around the team is great. He's a model professional. He's a nice guy. But in terms of what we need is an all-action midfielder, Don't cut it. Don't cut it. You know, if there was a deal to be had with maybe Cash and JWP for Fernandes, I think Southampton would love to see, you know, JWP back in there. I think he'd work well under Will Steele. You know, new manager coming in, you know, having someone like JWP there as his sort of confidant, as his sort of player liaison, you know, the Kevin Nolan to the Sam Allardyce. I could see that happening quite nicely, but it just doesn't work at West Ham in terms of the role he's been asked to play in that situation. And you think Souček can't really do it. I don't think Alvarez has got this is just my personal opinion, has got the energy, has got the motor to be able to do that role, and that's not the role he should be doing. He should be doing, you know, the double pivot if we ever do it with him and Potts, maybe, particularly for away games, you know, tougher away games, maybe. But we're over relying on JWP, and it needs sorting. Back to things we love. Speaking about the midfield, the second person I think who's benefited the most from pre-season is Freddie Potts. Now, I think there was a slight question mark, a slight asterisk by his name at the beginning of the summer sort of pre-season. In all honesty, yes, he's had two really good loan spells, and you know we assumed as West Ham fans that he was going to come back and walk into the first team, but there was that slight doubt in the back of the mind whether he could do the step up. And I think the advantage of having the summer series was he was playing against Premier League sides, not against, you know, a team from Switzerland or, you know, or Boreham Wood or Lille. You know, these are actually, you know, teams that we're going to be coming up against, maybe not 100%. And he didn't look out of place. I don't think he looked out of place yesterday. A couple of dodgy passes, but I think everyone had a couple of dodgy passes, to be honest. And I think those passes are because he's trying to make things happen. I think there's a lot more in his locker than just being a CDM. You know, there's definitely a bit of a swagger in terms of when he's got the ball. You know, he looks for it, he finds a good pass. I think, yes, he starts as a CDM, but it wouldn't surprise me if, you know, throughout, maybe not next, but, you know, as he's developing, he moves more, you know, more forward thinking, you know, and maybe turns into an 8 eventually. Who knows? But I think for the job he's doing now, he's perfect. I think that was part of the reason why we were linked with Tyler Morton, almost as a backup. If Freddie, you know, failed his audition, so to speak, we had Tyler Morton lined up, or, you know, looking at him. He's obviously at Lyon now, but yeah, and I fully think he's going to start on next Saturday. The fact is, in the last sort of couple of games, we've seen people like Freddie and the back five, and we'll talk about the defence in a minute. They've played a lot of the game, and to me, that's them getting the reps through. So when they play together against Sunderland next week, it's not alien to them. And Freddie's in that spot. I think it'd be fascinating to see Freddie against someone like Granit Xhaka. You know, literally people at bookends of their career. You know, there's a real opportunity there to stamp his authority on a good midfielder in terms of Granit Xhaka. You know, another CDM, but can bring it forward, and that's going to be a fascinating battle. Similarly, the Congolese battle of Aaron Wan-Bissaka and Arthur Masuaku, who had that on their bingo card. But, you know, if Arthur plays and they play on the left side, obviously he plays for Congo, and so does Aaron Wan-Bissaka. There we go. Back to things I hate. No creativity. I think, for me, Paqueta's still finding his range. He hasn't. It's like a golfer, you know. If they haven't played for a couple of weeks, they need to find their range. And I think at the moment he's still trying to find his range. His head hasn't been in the game for the best part of 18 months, in all honesty. You know, now that's all off his back. You know, there's still question marks on whether, you know, Man City might come in for him. You know, maybe with a deal with Grealish. I'd probably, as I said on the show yesterday morning, I think a deal with Cash and McAtee, for example, would probably benefit us more in the long run. But what worries me is we've got very workmanlike players. We do have some quick players. We have some players who are good professionals. You know, they look for a decent pass. They hold up well. They flick it on. But Paqueta gives us that it factor. And if he's not on show, if he's not on song, we haven't got anyone else really in the side who has that it factor, who could thread that pass that no one saw, who could do the Rabona to flick it over. You know, that type of skill, that creativity, we're very much lacking at the club, at the first 11, at the first team squad. Yes, Bowen can take the ball and run and beat a man, but I wouldn't say he's a particularly creative player. Very good reactive player. I think he's a very skillful player. But in terms of that creativity, that looking for almost 2 moves, 3 moves ahead, apart from Paqueta, he's the only person who can really do that. To some extent, maybe a George Earthy could be that person featured down the line, potentially. But I think someone like, again, Matheus Fernandes would be perfect. He has that footballing brain, as well as being an all-action box-to-box player. He can put a pass in. He can drop a shoulder. He can flick a ball. He can toe end it over. There's lots of ways that he can get the ball through to people, and it does worry me slightly. I mean, yesterday was a bit of a dull fest, in all honesty. I think there's probably no more than half a dozen shots across both sides on target. As I said, Diouf's crosses. I mean, Bowen had a decent shot. I think it was the second half where it hit the crossbar. Füllkrug should have scored from a cross coming in the other side from Wan-Bissaka. Was it Wan-Bissaka or KWP? I can't remember at the time. But he should have scored that. But there wasn't nothing sort of. I think the most creative person, the person who took on the most people, was something that Jean-Claire went on a tear up second half for about 10 minutes. And that worries me slightly. Just having that ability to have someone who can do something unusual, something different, which could win a game. Paqueta on his day can win a game off on his own. And we haven't seen that enough over the last 18 months, 2 years. Totally understandable in terms of mental capacity and the hearing over his head. But if he's not playing, if he's on the bench or he's injured or he's suspended, where else is the creativity coming from? I don't know. Unless you get an all action like someone like a Fernandes or Grealish or someone like that, or McAtee, who could thread the pass through with the eye or needle, that type of thing. That's what we need. We need another one. So it's not all us. It was always works with Payet when you're Payet and Lanzini. If one of them wasn't on song, the other one would have been. And we need that sort of what's the word? That je ne sais quoi. I don't really know. That je ne sais quoi. So that's what I don't like. Back to what we love. We love Aguerd. Now, I think pre-season has been a redemption for Naif. We were led to believe, according to reports, that he wanted to leave. He wanted to go to play in a Champions League team. He wanted to play Champions League football. Didn't return back to training. As we know, no real serious money bids. The only real bid was a loan deal from Roma, which West Ham turned down, and pretty much said, if you're not going to come with 20 million, he's not for sale. And Aguerd could have sulked, could have gone on strike, could have done what a lot of people have, including one of the players we've been linked to, Douglas Luiz. Didn't turn up to training with it. Didn't. Very professional, came and did a job. Behind the scenes, I think Potter's done a really good job on him, personally. And I don't think it's just on Aguerd. I think he's done a good job on the team. And we'll talk about that in my final point, spoiler alert. But I think Aguerd, under Potter, in this preseason, has looked a different player. And the partnership with him and Diouf, he could be sold to more of a side. I mean, to be honest, if he's ever put himself in the shop window for a move in the summer, in this transfer window, he's done a good job with it. The summer series, he played really well. Thought he had an okay game yesterday. And I like the way that he plays with Diouf. And I think he's been a real plus point in the preseason. Let's go to negative. What else do I hate? I can't remember what else I hated. Lacking depth. So we're talking about the creativity side, but I just think depth-wise across the board, we know there's certain positions we're oversubscribed in, and we'll talk about that a bit later on. But in terms of lacking depth, we had Füllkrug playing 90 minutes yesterday, despite the fact that Potter reckons he couldn't play 90 minutes. He played 90 minutes, and actually, I think even towards the end, I know he missed the penalty, but he seemed to, his levels were still up. I think in the same way that if we lost Paqueta to any reason, we'll be up shit creek. I think if we lost Bowen to any reason, we'll be up shit creek. that forward line. Yes, we've got Callum Wilson. Yes, we've got Callum Marshall, who was, conspiracious. Yeah, he was. You know, I mean, in terms of his absence, I imagine he'll play today, maybe. But he wasn't on the bench at all, which is slightly strange. Obviously, Wilson as well, probably injured now. I think he's playing tomorrow, and I think they probably held him back a little bit because, I mean, when Ben announced Callum Wilson, there was a distinct lack of enthusiasm from the home crowd yesterday. But there is definitely a lack of depth. Defensively, I don't think so. We'll talk about that in a minute. Do we talk about that in a minute? I can't remember. But in terms of that forward line, there is definitely a lack of depth. Yes, there's people who could do a job, but you don't want people who could just do a job. You want people who could do the job, if that makes sense, rather than just, sort of makeshift. And I still think, Idrissa Gueye is someone we're looking at for Mets. I mean, he seems at 15 million a really good, deal. You'll make your money back on him. And yeah, I still think I know midfield is a massive priority, but that forward line needs at least one more, at least. I know we got Callum Wilson. I mean, it might be decided that they bring Idrissa Gueye and send out Marshall, but we were led to believe that Potter wanted Marshall around the first team. So then he goes and buys Callum Wilson or gets him on a free. I understand it. Things I hate, things I love now. The Füllkrug-Bowen partnership. I think there's something nice about it. I thought Bowen has come back this pre-season a bit like the old Bowen. I thought yesterday was, to be honest, quite a captain's performance. A lot of the time, he was really fighting for the ball, playing almost as like a 6 at times. I'd prefer to play high up the pitch, but there was a real determination in him winning balls back and things. I think Füllkrug is the same. Should have scored that goal for sure. I mean, Bowen hit the crossbar as well. There was another shot. I think Bowen miscued it, and sort of it just couldn't quite, on the second half, couldn't quite hit the ball. You got to think with those balls coming in from Diouf on the left hand side, if Füllkrug doesn't get him front post, Bowen's going to be back post tapping them in. Obviously, Füllkrug scored again, and I really think he's got a real sense of renewed optimism. Renewed optimism in terms of he looks lean, he looks fit, he looks hungry. He knows that last year he was disappointed in terms of his return and in terms of joining West Ham and then being injured. And I think you're going to see a different Füllkrug. I think him and Bowen are going to work really well together. And with the cheat code that is Magic Diouf, you're definitely going to see some goals. Areola. Now, I'm looking at obviously yesterday we announced the signing of Mads Hermansen, which is brilliant, and it's exactly what we need. And if I'm looking at this pre-season as a whole, Areola was a massive minus point. I thought he's had an awful pre-season. When your side is looking for a number one, you would assume that you'd be like, fuck it, you don't need number one, I'm here and I'm going to show you what I did. But he didn't. He didn't take that opportunity to cement what he wanted to do. He was erratic. He's been all over the place. Yes, he saved a couple of penalties yesterday. I mean, because of him, we won the Boyle Sport Cup, don't you forget. But it's an area which we needed some new life in. And with Mads, we've got it. And I'm really excited for what Mads could do. I call him a legacy signing because at the age he is and being a goalkeeper, I mean, he signed a 5-year deal with a 1-year extension option. So, even if he went for the full term, that would be 31. Areola's 32, 33 at the moment. So, in theory, he could be our next goalkeeper for the next 10 years. You think the likes of, Ludic McCloskey, and I know I'm being Phil Park, I'm not comparing to Phil Parks, but in terms of the longevity and what you could build with a goalkeeper who's going to be your goalkeeper, who's going to be your rock, particularly if he fits within the Potter style and likes to play the ball on the floor. Seems a really nice guy as well from the brief interaction I had with him yesterday, and seems just a genuine guy and doesn't seem to be particularly arrogant. I mean, just 30 seconds. I sort of, converse with him, but you can get a feel. I think people can judge people quite quickly, and I think I'm a relatively good judge of character, and I think he's exactly what we need, and I think he's what we need for what's my last point, the team spirit. Now, for me, that is probably one of the biggest positives I've taken out of this pre-season. You can't fake that. Now, I know the club do the videos of the things and they can edit it, but you can't fake people being friendly with one another, people jostling with each other. It's that spontaneity, it's that spontaneous sort of, not shows of affection, but shows of team spirit. Case in point, yesterday, have I got the picture? Have I got the picture? I guarantee I've got the picture on my bloody phone. If I've got my phone, I'll show you. This is what I mean. Spontaneous things. That Bowen lifts up the trophy. Everyone's taking the piss a bit because it's a trophy. It's a sponsored trophy. Full crew, t-shirt off, runs away, lifts them up, and everyone's laughing. They threw Diouf up. He did a shaky thing. That type of stuff was not scripted. That type of stuff was off the cuff, and that shows me we have got a hell of a good team spirit there. You listen to what Fulkrug said. You listen to what people like Aguerd have been saying, and things like Mads Hermansen and Diouf and these guys and Kyle Walker-Peters, these guys that have signed, they've spoken to Potter and they get this incredible feeling of him and they get an incredible feeling of what the team's like and the team spirit. That is going to get us at least 6 points next season. When the chips are down, a wet Tuesday in Burnley, that's what's going to get you over the line for that point or come back from again, and yesterday we came back from being a goal down. Same as the game against Everton. When we 1-0 down against Everton, I think we were, or something like that. And was it Everton? Yeah. Yeah, it was. I think so. And I think that was the first time we'd come back from going the goal down all like last season, something ridiculous like that. That team spirit. And as I said, we know that on the first day from pre-season, Potter brought everyone into a room, not just the players, but the staff. And obviously, one of my contacts there, he was involved in that meeting. And he basically said, after his PowerPoint presentation that Potter did, talking about the vision and stuff like that, he wouldn't go into details about what was said, but he just said, Russ, I felt like I was 10 feet fucking tall when I left. And if that's just for a staff member, you can imagine what he's like with the players. And particularly someone like Paqueta. Paqueta if he gets his arm around Paqueta and it's all over and and you'll see a very different Lucas Paqueta, hopefully. And the last thing, I should put it on the other way, really, so I finish on a positive. Imbalance. Is it imbalance? Imbalance. It's imbalance, isn't it? Oh, it's in balance, not imbalance, idiot button. Now, for me, there is a clear imbalance with the squad, particularly in the midfield. Now we know there's not, no one's, we've, as I said, all our players have been up for sale. No fuckers bought them. No fuckers really put a bid in from apart from Kudus. But that midfield, there's too many people. There's too many people who do a similar job. Let's talk of maybe paying off 𝙃𝘼𝙏𝘿. Souček, I can't see him selling Souček because I think Souček's a really good player to put off the bench. And it's just his team spirit as well. He's a good person if you're chasing the game to throw on or you're trying to tie up the game. JWP, not doing it for me. There's three midfielders who could easily move on. I would assume if we got rid of them, we would bring in someone like a Josh Brownhill as that sort of 𝙃𝘼𝙏𝘿 role. Plus a first 11 starter like a Douglas Luiz or like a referee on Onyedika or someone like Fernandez or someone like that to sort out that imbalance. Centre back wise, I think we're all right as well. I think we're okay, because I thought what was quite nice yesterday as well was, I think it was about 70-minute mark, 𝙃𝘼𝙏𝘀 came off for KWP. KWP went to right wing back, and Aaron Wan-Bissaka played the back of the back three. I like that. It means there's adaptability there. There's ways of bringing on players and taking off players. Mavropanos. We've the option to maybe do the same with Aguerd and Diouf. Diouf plays centre back of the back three as well if need be. There are options there. Alvarez can go into the centre back positions if need be. Souček's played there, so there is a name. So defensively okay, but that midfield imbalance, and that's something which is so evidently clear. And in fact, most of that on the right hand side, things I hate, is pretty much all midfield based. JWP, no creativity, lacking depth. Well, I suppose it's more of a forward line imbalance. 3 of those 5 are midfield based. One's already been sorted in terms of the goalkeeper, and one in terms of the forward line. But that's it, my friends. What do you think? What have you taken away from the pre-seasons? Who have been the winners and losers when it's come to pre-season? As I said, I think the winner, the overall winner, has been Diouf. I think he's been exceptional this pre-season and has really got fans excited in Wingnut. I think he's brilliant. I think he's going to be a really good player for hopefully many years to come. Very exciting player. Yes, we're going to miss him and Aguerd and also Aaron Wan-Bissaka for the AFCONs as a bare minimum. But I think for the rest of the season, I think we've got some bloody good players there. But let me know what you think. If you like what we do, don't forget to like, comment, share. All helps the channel, not just West Ham, but anyone really. Hammers Chat, West Ham Fan TV, Voice, all of them. Claret Booze, Bobby Moorstand, West Ham World, Unofficial, JP, Babbling Irons, Talk Hammers, the Talking Hammers. All of them. Helps us out tremendously. You don't realise how much it does. And until next time, my friends, take care, stay safe, stay warm, stay humble, keep the faith, and have a lovely, lovely Sunday. Bye-bye.